Hi, everyone. We'll be starting in a few minutes. When you come in, just scan the QR and yeah, we'll also be recording and sending out all the slides from this meeting.
啊，怎么只有14个人？好少哦。
Hi, for those who just joined, we'll be starting in a couple minutes, so you can scan the QR to check in, and then we'll also be recording and sharing the slides. Okay, we're gonna start at 2:05, so we'll just give people 2 more minutes, then we will start our presentation. Thank you, everyone, for coming so far. All right, so we're gonna get started for now. Like we said, everything is gonna be recorded and the slides will be shared. So welcome to Finding Your First Internship in Tech, presented by Technica's events team. We're gonna start with just a few intros for the events team that worked on this. So my name is Ginger Asen. I am a rising sophomore at UMD and I'm studying computer science as well as trying to double major in natural resource economics.
I can go next. So my name is Aditi. I'm a junior here at UMD as well, and I am a CS major.
Yeah, now I'll go. I'm Srija. I'm a junior as well, and I'm an information science major.
So we know that interning is important, and we just want to reinforce some of the statistics behind this. It is the #1 method for finding full-time employment, as reported in UMD's graduation survey. And I didn't realize that pretty much half of graduates report getting their full-time job from an internship. So this is really significant way to find employment. It's not the only way, but it is very common, and most students will have more than one internship. So clearly an experience that they have throughout their college time, as well as something that helps them transition into full-time work. So not to worry if you don't have an internship, because there are definitely some great alternatives, including part-time jobs that might be easier while you're studying or doing other work, research, which can be a great way to dive deeper into your interests and connect with faculty, personal projects, which are something that are super accessible, and as well as academic positions. So actually gaining leadership positions that can be helpful for building your resume while also looking for internships.
Thank you, Ginger. So now I'm going to talk more about the tech industry as a whole, specifically the benefits to working in tech. So one key benefit, as we all know, is the flexibility and freedom in this field. And this is in terms of both like the type of work and the work itself. So firstly, there's many options for both remote, hybrid, or in-person work, which is very convenient for different situations. And on top of that, tech spans like all sorts of disciplines and fields, so it's really involved in almost any industry you can think of. So it really does allow you to combine any of your interests that you may have. On top of that, the tech industry is pretty new as a whole as well. So there's a lot of opportunity to work with different innovations and inventions, which can be pretty exciting. So with all these benefits, the tech industry does have pretty high levels of reported job satisfaction.
So here are some of the reasons also why internships in particular are useful. For these three main reasons of exploration, gaining connections, and experience. So exploration could be finding out what you like. For example, there's big questions that you could answer about the type of company, the type of job, the type of role that you're going to want to pursue, the connections that you'll make, not only for creating a network, but possibly the people that are going to be your future employers. And then just gaining experience, which you can do in a lot of different types of work experience, but specifically internships can be a great way to become specialized in something that's very practical and applicable, that goes beyond something that you might be able to do in a classroom or in another setting. And one example that I have from my personal experience, and this would answer the question at the start, this has definitely been my favorite work experience. I really enjoy working with kids, but it also showed me that even having a traditional job can be a great way over the summers and in your free time to learn what you want for your future career, even in a more technical career. And getting out of the tech bubble can be really useful for getting your head straight on what you look for in a job, and not just going with the crowd, but actually defining what you want in your career.
So tech is a pretty big umbrella term that encompasses like a whole range of disciplines. You can work, as I mentioned before, in almost any field and still somehow related to tech, whether that's like biotech all the way to something like supply chain management or close to anything else as well. So prior to working full time, it is really important to research into all these different trends. Some are listed here on this slide, all these different trends in tech, and find what really piques your specific interests. And a great way to do so is trying all different internships. Now, specifically for underclassmen, here are a few UMD tech partners that offer opportunities for you guys, as I know many of those joining might be in those like freshman or sophomore year levels. So we will go more over like these opportunities and others more at the end of this presentation. So definitely stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, I'll be handing off to our host, Priya, who will be talking about her personal experience trying to find internships and also transitioning into full-time positions as well. So Priya, you are welcome to fully take over.
Hi everyone, my name is Priya Chaudhary. So I'm a recent graduate from Virginia Tech, and I'm currently in my first full-time position at Freddie Mac. So I'm hoping that today I can give you guys a little bit of an insight as to what kind of steps you can take to get a tech internship and kind of how to prepare for one, and also future steps as well regarding like full-time positions. So for my educational background, I went to Virginia Tech, as I said. My major was business information technology, and I specialized in cybersecurity management and analytics. So that's kind of like a mix of information security, data analytics, and your core business classes. So I got a little bit of everything, which I thought was really interesting and fun. I minored in leadership and social change, which is a complete opposite to what I majored in, but I really enjoyed doing something that kind of wasn't tech related and got me thinking more about leadership and more about the world, really. But yeah, so that's a little bit about my education. So my professional path, these are some of my professional experiences relating to tech. So one of the first things I got in was a research position at our tech research facility at Virginia Tech. So I was on a use and abuse project. So we were working with data regarding spam information. So I got to kind of understand what spam was, how it targets people, and kind of see what kind of things people click on or get tricked by, really. So that was a really interesting position, and I was in the undergraduate research position. It was from my sophomore year to the beginning of my junior year. Then my junior year summer going into my senior year, I got an internship at Triple Point Security as a cybersecurity intern. That was just a pretty standard internship. I learned a lot about cybersecurity and a lot about the different tools that the field uses. Um, and I got to do a lot of hands-on work that maybe school didn't really provide me with. So that was really interesting. After that, I ended up getting my degree and graduating. That was this past May. And then I am currently in my full-time position at Freddie Mac, where I'm a technology analyst within the cybersecurity operations team. So I work a lot with data prevention, data loss prevention, and making sure that personal information stays within the company and doesn't get out into external platforms. But yeah, I'm having a great time with it so far. But yeah, it's been a great experience. Okay, so we can talk a little bit about getting an internship and how job searching works, or my experience with it as well. So I applied through a lot of different avenues, and there's a lot of different ways that you can use to kind of look for internships and learn more about them. One great way is definitely LinkedIn. It's a great way to reach out to people who work at companies that you think are interesting or hold roles that you think you would want to go into in the future or even now. Um, Another great thing about LinkedIn is you can find positions as soon as they open up. And you also get to see how many applicants have applied for that specific position. So you can kind of tell if it's a big pool of applicants or a small pool of applicants. It's definitely better to try to apply to positions that have lower applicants just because you're higher up on their list basically. So you're one of the top few applicants that first applied, and they tend to look at those in more depth, I guess. Another thing that's great is Handshake. Handshake really curates jobs specifically for your college and students within college. So they have a lot of entry level type positions or even internships that are really for college students. It's also based on connections that your school has with other companies. So companies that partner with your school or have a lot of have a high hiring rate from your school, they're generally on Handshake. Another thing that's great, of course, is school organizations. So you guys are doing a great job with that by just being a part of Technica. You're definitely taking that first step. School organizations definitely give you access to a lot of alumni and people who might be working even worldwide across the country that are a part of this organization. It gives you access to all those people, not just those who are a part of your college. And it helps you build your resume and your skills and networks. School organizations are great to put on your resume as well. And then lastly, career fairs. Career fairs are a great way to get face time with a recruiter, learn more about a company that you're interested in, and of course, again, learn a lot about companies that largely recruit from your university. So that's really great as well. So the different types of internships or interviews, sorry, are technical and behavioral. So technical, in my experience, the first one being case interviews. So I put that in the technical section, but it could kind of be both. Case interviews are where they basically ask you about a situation and they want to see how you work through that situation, or they'll give you a problem and they want to see the types of steps that you would take to solve that problem. So they just really want to see your thought process and learn more about your thinking style or problem solving approach. The next one would be a programming skills test. This is usually like a coding type problem or a programming problem where they send you over like a link and it has like a question for you to complete all within code. So it'll be like create a function or a loop where you add a number to each variable in an array. And you have to show your work through code and then send it back to them. The last thing, which I've had most experience with, is discussion of technologies, how they're used and how they work basically. So the interviewer will a lot of times ask you about a specific technology that they use day to day in the position, and they want you to kind of explain it and how you would use it and how exactly it works in an IT setting basically. And then the other type of interviews are those behavioral interviews. Those are more character and personal based. They want to discuss more about who you are as a person, the experiences that you've had. They really want you to highlight on your leadership and team working skills. So they'll have a lot of discussions about that. And kind of relating to that, they want a narration or reflection of your past experiences. So a lot of times they'll ask questions like, tell me about a time where you faced a difficult situation or had to work with someone who was difficult to work with, and they want to know your experience about it and what you did to overcome those types of experiences. So next I'm going to talk a little bit about resumes versus CVs. So resumes are usually shorter summaries, 1 to 2 pages, specifically tailored to your skills that relate to a specific role, and they're commonly used for job applications. While CVs are more comprehensive, it's a view of your academic credentials. They are commonly used for further education, so graduate school research, stuff like that. And people generally tend to use resumes and CVs interchangeably. I think all of the positions that I'd applied to, they use the term interchangeably. So they're either looking for They'll say resume or CV, but they're really meaning the same thing. All right, so interview prep. So I'll first talk about some things you can do with your resume. So while you're preparing for an interview or going out to like a career fair, you definitely want to update your resume with any new experiences or any relevant information that's come up in the past couple months or however long it's been since you last updated. So you'll definitely want to add projects that you've worked on, any type of leadership opportunities, even if that's like being a leader in a group project, courses that are within your major or related field. That's definitely great as well. I've always done that on my resume, so make sure to add courses that are related to IT or even related to the type of job that you're applying to or type of jobs that you want to apply to. Honors and awards are great to include on your resume as well. Things like Dean's List or any academic awards that you've achieved. And then, of course, clubs and extracurricular activities are a great way to kind of show that you're more of a well-rounded applicant. Next would be LinkedIn. So I personally use LinkedIn a lot to learn more about the interviewer and more about what the company does. LinkedIn allows you to definitely learn more about recruiters and those who are going to be interviewing you. And it'll show more about their interests and what they specialize in within their role. And you can use that information to kind of spark conversation with your interviewers or recruiters. It also helps you to understand the purpose and history behind the company so you have more knowledge about what the company does, maybe when it started, what it specializes in. And for the overall interview practice, I would say that you want to kind of simulate being in an interview and preparing for potential questions that an interviewer could ask you. So one thing that I really encourage other people to do, and I did myself, is write down your responses to common questions. So you can always Google interview questions, whether that be behavioral or technical, and just kind of type out or write down your responses so it's kind of ingrained. Another thing is to practice the STAR method. So the STAR method, I'm sure you guys have heard of it before. It's a method for behavioral type questions. And it's essentially an acronym. So the S stands for situation. You want to describe the situation that you were in and what happened. The T stands for task. So you want to explain the task and what its goal was. A stands for action. You want to provide details on what actions you took to achieve the goal. And then R stands for result. So you want to conclude the result of your action. And that's a really great way to kind of break down your different experiences and kind of wrap it all together so it's kind of neat and you're answering all the different aspects of the question that the interviewer is looking for. The last thing would be, or not the last thing, but the second to last thing would be to brainstorm your experiences that show up your skills. So a lot of the time, as I said before, they're looking for you to kind of narrate your past experiences. So you definitely want to try to have those experiences that relate to interview questions kind of at top of mind. So definitely try to think back to those times and maybe even write those down as well, because that'll definitely help you when you run into those questions. And finally, further look into the job requirements and skills. So whether that be behavioral or technical, for behavioral, you would probably want to look at the kind of soft skills that they want you to have. And then for technical, you would want to look at the tools and applications that they use in that position and maybe just learn more about it so you're more knowledgeable and can answer questions when they do ask you about those types of tools. So the interview timeline, I think it's different depending on what type of position you're applying for, but most IT or tech related positions have a kind of standard type of timeline. So first, of course, you would fill out and submit the application. You definitely want to try to do that before the last date, try to do it as early as possible. The second step would be a screening interview. So usually it's a short call from a recruiter to discuss your basic qualifications and learn more about you. And that's usually followed up by an interview schedule. So the recruiter will go ahead and schedule an interview with you and either the hiring manager or someone from the team. And then after that, they would usually have a behavioral interview first. So usually the hiring manager or team member or manager would be discussing those character-based questions and learning more about you personally and your experiences. After that, there's usually a first technical interview. That can often be one of those online coding assessments. It can be a discussion with a current team member about their tools that they use in the position and their use cases, or it can be um, algorithmic questions. So learning more about like functions, algorithms that are often used in those types of positions. Second technical interviews are not always present in tech interviews or tech positions. Sometimes it's just that first interview, but they can definitely have multiple, not just two. But usually the second technical interview is conducted by someone who's higher on the team. So maybe a supervisor or the manager of that team. They often involve questions that are a little bit more intense or maybe a little bit more difficult to answer, I guess. And then it could possibly be live coding or programming as well. And then after that, that's usually when decision time is. Usually you'll hear back from the recruiter rather than the person who actually interviewed you. And it's always okay and a good idea to ask the interviewer or recruiter what the expected timeline is for you to hear back. Because sometimes people are just waiting around, they don't really have any idea. Yeah, I think it's a great idea to always ask the interviewer or the recruiter time frame on when you would hear back. So a couple helpful tips and tricks that I have, or some things that I did that I felt were really useful. The first thing would be personal projects that were mentioned before. So personal projects specifically that are relating to your field of study, using either popular languages, tools, applications. It's a great way to stand out to recruiters. And what I mean by personal projects is something that you kind of take up on yourself. You kind of create an application, a tool, a type of project, I guess, or yeah, project, where you kind of show off that you are interested in your field and want to learn more about it and are doing something additional that you didn't really have to do. And that really stands out to recruiters, showing that you really are taking initiative to learn more about your field and your interests, basically. Along with that, during interviews, it's really great to show that you're excited and willing to learn as much as possible. Recruiters and interviewers really just want to see that you're passionate and that you want to continue to learn. And this comes up a lot when interviewers ask questions that maybe you don't know the answer to, but if you show that you are willing to learn and you are willing to continue to grow once you're a part of this team and want to continue to keep up with education and stuff like that, they are often really impressed by that as well, and that can take you to the next level. Another thing is I would definitely take advantage of your university's career center. They have a lot of different resources, like helping you edit your resume, speaking with a career advisor, and they even have mock interviews which you can schedule with another professional, which is a great way to practice. Another thing is to reach out to your academic advisor, because they often have a lot of information about research opportunities within your specific major. Professors are also great with helping with research, and they also have great, they can help you with getting TA positions. And that's definitely another thing that's really great that you can put on your resume as well. Another thing I want to say about professors is just that often professors are the ones who are doing research at your university. So they definitely have more inside information about that. So if you find a professor that you know is doing research, or you have a professor who talks about their research, definitely reach out to them if you think their project is interesting, because that can open up a lot of opportunities for you as well. And lastly, use LinkedIn to reach out to recruiters and even alumni to learn more about their roles and open positions within their company. Um, Having a network of alumni or like knowing alumni is definitely great because they love to come back to their university and help out as much as they can. So staying connected with them is a great idea. Um, and the last thing I want to talk about is make sure to use your personal network as well. So relatives, family and friends, your relatives networks even, they can definitely help you get a wider reach and learn more about different companies and talk to people from different companies as well. Um, so I think that's also something that everybody should definitely use as well. It's not just your academic network, but it's also your personal network as well. That's really beneficial. Yeah, I think that's kind of it for me.
Okay, so now we're going to be sharing some really useful resources, especially for UMD students, but also general resources that anyone of any grade level looking for a first internship or maybe their last internship could use. So these are some of the partners that we have at the I4C division in Maryland, and these are just some great examples here. So these are things that you might see around at career fairs, you might see especially at computer science or tech related mini events throughout the year. So those are things to keep your eye out for, get to talk to people, and also get to have that face to the name and get to also meet peers who might have had experiences, who might be talking about their time working for or interning for these partners.
So there's more opportunities. There's Breakthrough Tech, which is like a national organization, but we have a branch here at like UMD. So they offer things like sprinternships, which are like mini little winter break like internships for you to just get your foot in the door. They also host a lot of like coffee chats and just like networking opportunities that are really easy for students to go to. They're usually free and like advertised pretty well. So getting out there and like networking with different recruiters and just people that work in the industry. And like Ginger was saying before, I4C or the inclusion in computing, they also offer like tutoring. So you can get tutored or you can be a tutor. So again, just building that resume.
Then lastly, here is a great way to get a compiled list of internships and opportunities dependent on your needs. So we have specifically for underclassmen, as well as some tips like getting started really early with developing your skills that are specific to your interests. Like Aditi had mentioned earlier, there's so many different fields in tech. So you want to make sure to explore and find what is actually interesting to you and be able to hone in on those skills. And then also, as Priya talked about, networking can include so many different things. It's not just things through LinkedIn or through career fairs, but actually a lot of times it could be through family and friends, maybe people through your past work or people through past academic experiences. So you really have to not be shy and put yourself out there, because oftentimes, even if that doesn't directly land you a job, could be a great way to expand what you know. And then for upperclassmen, especially those looking for the transition into a full-time job, you want to look at places that might have historically, or you have heard that have great rates for offering. And then obviously that also means when you are interning to be making a personal connection and putting yourself out there so that it is clear that if this is an opportunity that you want to pursue into a full-time career, that you are not treating this internship as anything less than your audition basically for a full-time career. And then also at this point, if you're an upperclassman, you're probably going to have a specialty or a certain field that you are looking for. So you can really become a little bit more specific compared to when you're an underclassman. I think it's okay to explore a bit more and try out internships because you might not know exactly what yet. So those 3 QR codes you can scan specifically if you're underclassmen. This is an amazing resource that has so many different internships and it's really well organized. The summer 2025 list is specifically for that summer internships that are opening up now and you can apply to. And then also for those who are going to be graduating, there's a great list there. So if anyone also can't scan right now, we are going to be sending out the slides. If you have issues with any of the QR codes, please let us know. But these should be working and really great opportunities there. So take advantage of that. Take a check out at all of those.
And then another great way to network is also at Technica itself. So on Technica weekend, we have a sponsorship fair where all our different sponsors will be present and will each have their own little booths. As you can see here, these are some pictures of our sponsorship fair from last year's Technica weekend. And this is a great opportunity, as mentioned before, to network, to talk to these actual recruiters and representatives of these companies and really get your name out, get your foot out there and create like meaningful in-person connections with people that can help you down your career path. And now we will transition on to a little bit of a Q&A time. So all our participants, anyone in the Zoom, feel free to either unmute and ask any questions you have, either related to what we talked about, or if you want to branch off of that and ask about something else as well, maybe our personal experience, feel free to. And you can either unmute and share these questions or share them in the chat. So we'll give a few minutes for you guys to ask a few questions, and you are more than welcome to ask about anything talked about.
I had a quick question. So when Priya was talking about what is good to have on a resume, she was talking about projects, and I was wondering if there are certain types of projects that recruiters would be more interested in seeing on a resume, whether there's a difference between class projects and personal projects, and which ones recruiters would be more inclined to take a look at on a resume.
Yeah, sure. So projects within your resume, usually you want to put they're definitely, class projects are definitely great. I would suggest doing something like a group project or a class project where you made something, really like had a result to it, or had a application or something that you created and then maybe presented that to the class. Those are great projects to put on your resume. Specifically, I would say something that is more technical based. So I know something that I put on my resume when I was in college was we created a decision support system. And that was a more technical type of project where we basically had a simulation type of thing. We chose a company and we kind of had to create a portal for them to kind of track their supply chain. And that was a project that was definitely more technical based. And we did have to present that, and it was something that created a result or created a type of application, basically. I think those are great because recruiters like to see technical type of projects, and knowing that you had to create something and then go on to present that and explain that type of project that you created, that's definitely good. And then the difference between, or I wouldn't say personal projects are better than just regular school projects. I think they can just show more initiative and maybe kind of separate you from a lot of people who are just choosing to talk about class projects. So I think that's the main difference. Personal projects, I feel like, definitely make you stand out and show that you have that initiative and really have that passionate about learning more about your field. outside of, normal school hours or normal school tasks, basically.
Thank you.
So I see we have another question in the chat asking about how many internships would you recommend applying for in your freshman year? Priya, if you want to take this, or anyone else, but we can start with Priya if you have an answer for that.
Sure. I think it really depends. A lot of the times, companies are really not even looking for freshmen. Internship wise, they're usually looking for people who are a little bit more advanced in their college career, so usually sophomores and juniors. But I think that I would say honestly apply as much as you can or as much as you want to, because that definitely gives you more experience for when people are looking for those sophomore and junior level positions or internships. So I would say as much as you want to and as much as you want to try, because you never know. There are companies that do look for freshmen. I just haven't had personal experience with that. Usually when I would attend like career fairs or apply for things, they're usually looking for somebody who was like a junior standing. But I don't know if anybody else has any experience with that. But yeah.
Just to piggyback off of that, I feel like one thing is really helpful, especially in our field. As we know, it can be a little oversaturated, especially at this time. So kind of what the methodology that I utilize is kind of like just hitting it at the dartboard, applying to, as Priya mentioned, as much as you can. Obviously, do not stress yourself out over this, especially as a freshman. As Ginger was talking about at the beginning of our presentation, it really is not a big deal if you don't get an internship freshman year. There's so many more opportunities and you have so much more time to find other opportunities as well. So, but if you are really interested, I'd say definitely looking for opportunities that are like targeted for underclassmen. A lot of big companies do have more like boot camp or fellowship type things targeted for more freshmen and sophomores, and kind of just going through all those and just keep applying to all those and trying it out until maybe you get a call back or an interview or something like that is definitely helpful.
Yeah. One thing I want to add on to that is that, like Aditi said, there are a lot of those like boot camps, and there's also, I think they call them externships, if I'm correct. They're usually like a 2 day or 1 day type of experience where they look for people who are underclassmen that could potentially be interns in the next couple of years. So they kind of get you to know the company a little bit better, and they get to know you a little bit better. It's kind of like an extended like networking session, basically, where you get to kind of go to their company location, learn more about them, learn more about what they do and the different types of roles that they do offer. And they kind of get you in the door a little bit because they already know you then when you apply for those internships later on.
And one last thing I'll add is that I feel like most people that I know that have some sort of experience, whether it's internship or research, they are taking an action to make a personal connection with people. So that is a big part of it. I think that it can cause a lot of burnout applying to, maybe 100 positions online, not hearing back from most. So I would say do apply online, do your best with that. But a lot of the times the positions that you might find are either through personal connections or through something that's specific to your school or specific to your grade or specific to a niche of yours. And I think if you can focus on those things, you might get more bang for your buck for the time that you put in. So just one example, if you're a UMD student, but any research institution is going to have this, there's a database of research opportunities that are specifically for underclassmen. Many of them will have no experience required or a few skills that are pretty common skills if you're in tech that you can go email the person, and if you have a personal connection to that and you can talk about why it interests you, it could be a position that you could hold, maybe not your first semester or even your second, maybe over the summer. So that's just one example of using the resources that give you a connection to someone rather than only applying online is going to probably give you a more successful outcome.
And one last thing to add on to that, I think Ginger brought up a really great point. One big personal connection a lot of us have, especially if you're at UMD, is your professors. And as this is a research university, a lot of our professors are like currently conducting research. And since you're one of their students, they're likely more inclined to like take you on, or at least even recommend you to like someone they know that is conducting research. So I would definitely recommend, especially as a freshman, going to your professor's office hours, creating connections with them, and possibly asking them about if they have any opportunities for you or if they know of any opportunities for you. And again, feel free to drop any more questions in the chat or unmute. And if not, we can go into the final slide as well.
I had another
I
question.
had a,
Oh,
what?
go ahead.
I know like at the end of interviews, they always ask, like, do you have any questions for us? And I feel like I like always like, get like better and stuff, but do you have any like recommendations for like good questions to ask? Maybe just to like learn more or to like stand out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wanted to touch on that as well. Yeah, they definitely do ask you, like, do you have any questions for us? And that's honestly a time where they are a little bit, like, even though it doesn't seem like it, they are testing you a little bit because they want to know that you have invested time in the company and have invested time in this position and want to learn more about what they're all about. I think some great questions are related to not technical related, maybe more leadership related. Sometimes, like asking the company what kind of leadership opportunities they have, or maybe what kind of learning development tools they have or they provide for employees. That kind of just shows them again that you really want to learn and grow at their company and you are of value to their company and want to help them in their process of learning and growing as well. So that's definitely great. I think more technical, I think asking about different tools that they use within their job or their role or their team uses is great as well. Because it shows kind of that you want to learn about what they're doing and you want to learn how they feel about those tools that they use. Asking their opinion on certain things, like how they feel about new technologies coming up, is a great way to start conversation as well, and shows that you're thinking about new and upcoming things that are happening in your field as well. But another thing also, you can always, it's definitely hard to come up with those questions on your own. So definitely use the internet as much as possible. Like ask Google, ask ChatGPT, like anything to kind of help you formulate those questions, because it definitely is hard to think of those on your own if you, especially not having too much experience with that. So yeah, that's definitely a helpful tool as well.
And then thank you for that answer. One question I wanted to touch on, because we didn't get into super specifics about career fairs, but I wanted to know your experience. Was that how you found your jobs, or was it through online? And then at career fairs, what were some steps that you took that maybe during or after? Because I was kind of wondering the etiquette around that, and if you were doing follow-ups or if you usually just made the connection in person there and then applied after.
Yeah, so I didn't get my full-time position through a career fair, but I did get my internship through the career fair. Um, I think, as I said before, there's a lot of companies that come that are great to um, that have great connections with your school. So I think that etiquette behind it is usually what I would do is the night before I would go to a career fair, I would research the companies that were coming because they usually send out that list to students. I would research the companies that were more tech related, or I would look for specific companies that were more cybersecurity related because that's what I wanted to go into. So I kind of researched the company and then look into um, job positions that they had available for interns or full-time positions, and I would carry like a notebook around, and so I would write that in the notebook that I would take with me to the career fair, so then I had all the information in front of me, and then I would decide based on that list of companies who I wanted to talk to. So whoever I did research on, I would go to their booth, talk to them about what I would try not to ask, they don't usually recommend you ask like generic questions, like or not generic questions, but like questions like, oh, what does this company do? Because usually they or people, it's better to like already kind of know what the company does, and come in kind of knowledgeable about that and ask about maybe more specific things that the company does or certain specific roles that you saw were open. And maybe even ask the recruiter or the employee kind of what kind of role they think you would fit best in at the company. So I think that's definitely great to do before um, attending the career fair. And then what I would usually do is whoever I would talk to, I would try to get their business card. And then when I got home from the career fair, I would go ahead and like email all those people that I talked to and be like, hey, like, thank you so much for talking to me. And I also used that notebook that I took around to kind of take notes after I talked to a recruiter, like what we talked about and kind of maybe a position that they told me to apply to. And that's also really helpful for when you're creating that email to say thank you, to maybe add something like personalized kind of. So you'd be like, thank you so much for talking to me about this position, or I was really glad that you informed me more on this type of tool or this type of resource, I guess, at the company. Um, so that's definitely great to do after career fairs as well. And I feel like it kind of helps them keep your name like at the top of their list or at the top of their mind when they're looking at those intern positions. And then also when you do apply, or you do give them your resume, they'll definitely remember that more when you send them that thank you email, because they'll be like, oh yeah, this is the person that I talked to, and she or he or they remembered like that I talked to them about this and they were interested in that.
Thank you. That is really helpful and a great summary and overview of all of that information. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
If anyone else has any questions, they can just drop in the chat. We'll give another minute before we finish up, or anyone who hasn't asked questions can also unmute.
Yeah, I did have a question. So, you mentioned you're in a full-time position now. I was just wondering, like, if you noticed any like differences between like applying for an internship versus like a full-time role.
Um, I guess a little bit. It's uh, I think it's more they're looking for full-time positions definitely look for a little bit more experience than an internship would obviously. Um, I think that's probably one of the biggest differences. Also, I think I found that for full-time positions, there's definitely more rounds of interviews or more people that you talk to, rather than at internships. For me, for my internship, I had like one behavioral type interview, that had a mix of behavioral and slightly technical questions, and that was it. But for my full-time role, I had a call with the recruiter. Then I had like a video type interview where they record questions for you and you record your answers to them basically. And then I had like another behavioral type of interview where I was actually talking to someone. And then I had a technical interview. And so it was a much longer process than it would be for an internship. And I think that's probably another one of the bigger differences. But I think usually the questions are pretty, at least for behavioral, they're pretty standard. Like they still are trying to gauge your character, and learn more about your leadership experiences and the skills that you've obtained through education. Um, I think technical is a little bit where it maybe differs, where they'll ask you more um, specifics about the technologies that you know and specifics about how you would um, how you would work with the technologies that they have in that type of role that you're interviewing for. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, I'll say again, if anyone else has questions, and if not, I'll give one more minute and then we can wrap it up if no one else has any questions. But please feel free, if you do, to send in the chat or unmute.
Mm, 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 mm,
Oh, okay. See, Michelle asked, how did you handle rejection when going through the job hunt? I guess saying, because obviously you're going to apply to more than you will hear back from or get.
Yeah, definitely. So for my internship and my full-time actually, I applied to so many positions. I applied to probably close to 100 for each. It is a lot. And it's definitely kind of like a second job to school almost. And I don't know, I think it's also obviously the job market, and especially in tech, like there aren't as many positions as there were before, but it's getting better now. But that also has a part in it. But I think I don't know how exactly. I mean, I feel like I just kind of accepted it. Like you kind of have to know that there were hundreds of people who were applying with you, and everyone has a different type of skill set. Everyone has a different specialty. And I feel like knowing that and knowing that other people um had to kind of like almost fight for this position kind of made it easier because it wasn't just me and one other person or me and a couple other people. It was a large pool that they were picking from. And I think that kind of helped me kind of get over those rejections and continue to look more. Um, and I think one thing that people kind of get stuck on is like they feel like they don't have enough experience, or they feel like maybe their skills aren't good enough. But I feel like when you're in college, you are doing as much as you can, you're learning as much as you can, and those are experiences in itself. So you just kind of have to keep pushing and keep applying because you will get an internship and a full-time job. It might take longer for some people, but I think consistently applying um, will definitely like land you a position. I think it's definitely hard in the moment sometimes when you really feel like it was a position that you really wanted, or maybe you felt like it fit your skill sets really well. I think I've definitely experienced that, but I think you just kind of have to brush it off and keep going because um, there's so many other opportunities that you have. You just have to look for them.
Thank you. That's a great reminder. I feel like for everyone going through the process, whether it's at the start or at the end of it. And then I see that there is another question asking if it's easier to get offers with companies that are partnered with I4C or UMD. And this is something that I guess one of us at UMD could answer. I don't specifically have experience here, but I do know that there are specific programs that are for UMD students. So in that sense, yes, because the pool is much more limited and they are specifically looking for UMD students. So I think that is a good place to start, knowing that there is not going to be as large of a pool. And especially if it's specifically for freshmen or sophomore at UMD, that once again will restrict the pool. And I think that makes it a little bit easier to have a chance. And then even if they aren't one of the companies that we showed here, there's a lot of companies that will be at career fairs. And again, if they're at a career fair at UMD, that is indicating they're looking for UMD applicants. They want those people. And especially if a company is saying that they want someone with your skill set or someone of your grade level, then you know that they're looking for that specifics in the application. So yeah, I would say to look through there. Does anyone who's hosting here know or have an experience through I4C?
Yeah, I personally do not actually I4C, but AWC, the Association of Women in Computing, which is also they partner with I4C often. Both organizations, one thing I definitely recommend everyone to check out, have Slack channels that you can join, and they have a little like careers channel on there that is very, very helpful. Um, a personal experience I had is on those career channels, they often have like a bunch of these companies come and they have a recruiter host coffee chats here at UMD. I4C does a bunch of them, and that is an absolutely amazing way to really just put like a face to your application, which is like it holds a lot of value to actually humanize yourself to the recruiter, because these are often the people who are actually handling your application and pushing it forward. And it really helps, again, as we mentioned, networking, creating real human connections is really important to boost yourself forward in this application process. And a lot of the times people don't, even at UMD, don't really make the time to go to these coffee chats. So I've had these recruiters like say to me that it really is valuable, and they really do appreciate us taking the time, coming in person, and even taking like 10 to 15 minutes to talk to them. And they really do hold value for that in your application as well. Okay. And since it is nearing 3 o'clock, again, if anyone has any more questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. But I want to thank Priya, first of all, for hosting today and sharing your experience and so much information as well. And I want to thank everyone who asked questions, and Priya for your amazing answers. And for everyone for attending, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. We really appreciate it. This slide deck will be sent to you all through an email, and we'll also send a little recap of today's presentation. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at our events Gmail. But other than that, we really appreciate you guys spending a little hour with us on your Saturday, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.